Recording in progress. Okay, well, welcome. Monday, January 31st, last day of January. Already. So, before I get started on my topic for the day, I want to make sure that everyone understands that today is the last day of January. So I want you to do a couple things. I want you to, number one, not right now, but at some point today or tomorrow, pull out your business plan and ask yourself, am I 1/12 on the way to my goal? Am I 1/12 on the way to my goal? Because that's where we're at. We're a 12th into the year. Now you might think, well, Robert, it's a 12th. Like that's a lot of, that's a big fraction. I get it. But I want to get in the habit of checking where you are monthly. Am I 1/12 of the way? Am I 1/6 of the way? Am I, so on and so forth. So that way, if you're behind, you catch it sooner to then make sure you get back on track. Because what you don't want to happen is then you check your goal. You're right now, I'm 1/12. Am I a 12th on the way? No, I'm behind. Okay, I got to go. So then you try to make up for February, March, April. What you don't want to have happen is at the end of April, you check to say, oh, am I, 1/3 of the way toward my goal? Because 4 months is gone. Oh my gosh, I'm way behind. And I could have, but you could have maybe found that out month to month. So check to see, am I 1/12 of the way to my goal? If you are not, get speeded up now. Again, I know you're thinking, Robert, that's 1/12 of the way. Like we got plenty of time. And I agree, you do have plenty of time. But, pretty soon, all of a sudden, you're going to wake up and it's going to be July. And then you're going to wake up and it's going to be Christmas. And it's going to be like, whoa, what happened to the year? And you're not going to be on track for your goal. If you had a great January and you're exceeding 1/12 of your goal so far, don't slow down. Keep going, and either A, have the best year of your career, or B, stock up like a squirrel in case that bad month comes along. Okay, so make sure you're checking that out before you, today or tomorrow, take a look where you're at. Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so let's get into today. Okay, so my question to start is, have you ever tried to work or worked with an unmotivated client? Yes, sir. Raise your hand or put a 1 in the chat box if you've ever done that.
Yes, guilty as charged.
Yes, everybody should either be raising their hand or putting 1 in the chat box. Or as Mike Ferry would say, everybody raise your damn hand. He does that at seminars. Have you ever done this? Everybody raise your damn hand, right? Because we're all guilty of it. We might not think at the time the real cost of working with an unmotivated client. We think end goal. Well, look, I have a seller. This is a $800,000 property. If I don't double end it, and let's say I'm getting 2.5%, that's 20 grand. They're going to sell at the highest market. I can convince them that this is a time to sell it. And all I'm thinking about is that $20,000 paycheck. What the hell? Let's give it a go. And all we're thinking is like, oh, so what? Even if it doesn't, look, I'll take it a little overpriced. So what? It's going to take me a little bit longer. I might have to go through some price reductions, all these other different things going through my head, because all we're thinking about is the 20 grand at the end of the rainbow. What you have to start doing when you get to the level that you all are at is you have to start thinking bigger. As Mike would say, you have to start thinking bigger. Part of thinking bigger as a salesperson is you have to look at things from a profit and loss standpoint. Now, most salespeople, not just real estate agents, most salespeople run a profit statement. They don't run a profit and loss statement. They see the $20,000 at the end of the rainbow. I don't care if it takes me 6 months or a year to sell it. I don't care. I'm looking at that $20,000 profit at the end of the rainbow. They're not calculating the loss. That's what we're going to talk about today. The true cost of working with an unmotivated client. Now, some of what we're going to talk about today is going to be maybe a little more advanced than some of you want it to be. So I apologize. Bear with me. Okay. This might not make sense to you today, but at some day you'll look back in your notes and go, oh, wow, this makes a lot of sense. So just stick with it. Okay. There is going to be a lot of math. I apologize. Some of you are, no one told me there'd be math involved today. It's Monday, Robert. What are you doing? All right. There's going to be a lot of math, right? So you're going to be okay. But you have to start thinking in terms of this, the profit and the loss, and not just the profit. So here's the first thing that you need to do in order to really understand the cost of an unmotivated client, is you have to figure out what your hourly rate is. Yes, you have an hourly rate. I know you're an independent contractor and you work on commission, but you have an hourly rate. So here's how you're going to figure out your hourly rate for the purposes of this exercise. I want you to first write down, what is your income goal for the next 12 months? What is your income goal for the next 12 months? What I want you to write down next is how many days worked you're going to work in the next 12 months. Now, if you've recently done your business plan, you probably already know that. Let's say that you're going to work 42 weeks at 5 days a week. That's 210 days. Okay. This doesn't have to be perfect. If you're going to work 45 weeks at 5 days a week, it's going to be whatever. Okay. How many days are you going to work? And then I want you to take the days that you're going to work and multiply that by 8 hours. Now, some of you might work more than 8 hours, might work less than 8 hours, but let's just assume it's an 8-hour workday. Okay, so step number one is I want you to write down your income goal for the next 12 months. Step number two is write down how many days you plan to work in the next 12 months. Again, if you recently did your business plan or your numbers analyzer, use that number. If you don't know, the average real estate agent nationally works 220 days, okay, which is 44 weeks out of the year. Figure out what you're going to work. And then multiply the total days worked by 8. When you multiply the total days worked by 8, that's how many hours you will be working over the next 12 months. So then the last step is I want you to go back, take the income goal that you had, and divide that by the total number of hours you're going to work. And in that, you'll find what your hourly rate is. Did I lose anybody? Is everybody kind of where I'm at so far? If you don't know, you need to figure this. I can't move on to the next step. You're not going to understand the next step if you don't have this part down.
Can you repeat it?
Sure. Step one, write down your income goal for the next 12 months. Step two, write down the number of days you're going to work for the next 12 months. Doesn't have to be exact. Some of you are analyticals and you're trying to figure out 227, maybe a half day here. No. Is it 220? Is it 230? Is it 240? Okay. It's not 365. I know that. Okay. However many days you're going to work. And then I want you to multiply that by 8. 8 hours a day. Now, again, I know some of you might work more, might work less. Let's just use 8 for all intents and purposes. So let's say, for example, that you're going to work, 210 days. And you're going to multiply that by 8. You're going to come up with 1,680. That's how many hours you'll work over the next 12 months. So then what I want you to do, the final step, is to take the income goal you had and divide that by the number of hours. So let's say your income goal was $120,000, $10,000 a month. And you divide, and you found out you were going to work 1,680 hours. You take 120,000 divided by 1,680, and you get $71.43 per hour. Okay. So that's your hourly rate. That's what we're going to work off of here for the next couple minutes. Now, there's a few different things I can do with that, but I'm going to move on to just go to the working with an unmotivated client. So now here's a question. Well, let me back up. There's two costs for a real estate agent. There's a cost of getting a listing, and then there's a cost of the actual transaction. So let me ask you this. How many hours do you need to prospect to get a signed listing contract? Is it 1 hour? Is it 10 hours? Is it 15 hours? Is it 20 hours? I don't know what the number is. Pick a number of how many hours of prospecting to get a listing signed contract. Okay. So let's say, for example, that it was 15 hours. The math is almost done. We got about another 5 minutes of math, and then we'll be done. Okay. So if I took 15 hours of prospecting and then I multiply that by my hourly rate. So 15 hours of prospecting, let's again say I was going to use $71.43 as my hourly rate, $71.43. That's going to be $1,071.45. So it cost me in time $1,071 to get a listing. Okay. So step number one is I just figured out how much time it would take for me to actually get a signed listing in terms of prospecting. Now let's go to the cost of a transaction. So if you have an unmotivated client, does it typically sell right away? Okay.
Yes.
The average days on market in the MLS is actually 24 days. That's the average. Now, if that's the average, is it fair to assume that an unmotivated person would take longer than the average? Is that fair? Okay. So if I was to say the average unmotivated listing instead of 24 days was 35 days, can we go off of that number? Okay. And then what's the average escrow time? Is it 30 days roughly? 30-day escrow, is that pretty normal? Okay. So 35 days for the listing, days on market, 30 days for the escrow. So I have a 65-day deal for an unmotivated client. Okay. So 65 days. When you have a listing, is it fair to us now 65 days, for example, if I divide that by 7 is about 9 weeks. So let me ask you this. How much time per week do you spend on each listing? So for example, if I was to say administration, just administration, basic administration, paperwork on a listing, is that 1 hour a week? 2 hours a week? What do you think? 3 hours a week? I don't know. You tell me. Basic administration of a listing, following up with your TC. How much time is that per week?
2 hours.
2 hours, 1 hour. I see 1 hour. I see 2 hours. All right, 1 hour. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll use the bottom number. And let's say it's 1 hour a week. Okay, so 1 hour a week administrating. Communication, calling on the phone with your clients, things like that. How much time do you spend per week talking to your clients on a listing? Is that another hour? Half hour? 2 hours? Half hour?
15 to 20 minutes.
15 to 20 minutes. Okay. So let's use 30 minutes. Okay. So I've got an hour of administration. And then what about other communication, calling the lenders, the title, the escrow? Does that add another 15, 20, 30 minutes a week?
30 minutes.
Okay. So let's just say it's an hour of communication. So I have an hour for administration. I have an hour for communication. Right now, it's an overpriced listing. So what about problem solving? Am I spending a half hour problem solving an overpriced listing, unmotivated client?
Is that with the drama?
Yeah.
1 hour.
1 hour. Okay. So I have an hour for administration, an hour for communication, an hour for problem solving. Okay, per week. So there's 3 hours per week. But I'm doing this for 9 weeks on average. So that's 27 hours. Because that's 3 hours I'm spending per week on this transaction for 9 weeks. Is 9 times 3 is 27. So what I want you to do now is take 27 and multiply that by your hourly rate.
Wow.
So what is that? That's another couple $1,000 probably, a few $1,000.
$27,520.
Okay. And then you're going to add that hours of prospecting in there, because the first number was how many hours, what was the cost of the prospecting? So that was another 1,000, 2,000, whatever dollars. So you don't have to say it out loud, but you can kind of see here, this number is kind of getting pretty high.
Yep.
Isn't this
Hey,
interesting?
Robert.
Yes.
Robert, and also the cost, when you have an unmotivated seller, and sometimes you need to cancel the listing or get into escrow and cancel the escrow because the seller is not motivated.
Oh yeah.
How much it costing you and your mindset and the production, because
100%.
you cancel something, you won't be able to work for a little while.
100%. Yep. Michael is 100% right. Yep. Absolutely. And I also didn't get into, any other, pay for the photographers, flyers, postcards. I didn't get into the cost of open houses time-wise. You do a couple open houses, 3 or 4 open houses, a couple hours a piece. So what I'm opening up the eyes to here is getting out of the, well, gosh, Robert, but I'm going to make $20,000 at the end of this deal. That's great. But what is it costing you to do this in time? Because if you don't value the time, then you don't value anything. Time is your most valuable commodity because it can't be replaced. Money can. Therefore, it makes it more valuable. So when you figure out your hourly rate and you think, okay, gosh, I'm going to make $20,000 at the end of this, but gosh, I mean, I'm going to be on the market for this long. I'm going to have solved this many problems. I'm going to have to talk to this all the time. It's going to be weighing on my mind. This is going to be a couple hours a week at least for 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 weeks. The numbers start to add up. So it's very important that you start to understand the value of your hourly rate and the cost of this listing. And again, we haven't even gotten into some of the other things, and we're not going to get into other costs of this. Questions so far on anything? Okay, got it. So that's the time cost. Time cost so far. So let's get into additional costs. Additional cost. So here's what else an unmotivated client costs you. I wrote down a couple other things. I wrote down number one, it's costing you your numbers against other agents. It's costing you your numbers against other agents. So here's what I mean. One of the things that we encourage you to do, and we do for a number of you, is you'll say, hey, I'm going on a listing and I'm competing against this person. I want you to run my numbers to see how I compare. Days on market, average listing above sell price, things along those lines. Well, when you're working with an unmotivated client, does your average days on market go up or down? I see. Your average days on market goes up, right? Your average day, because if you're working with an unmotivated client, it takes you longer to sell. So your average days on market goes up. So therefore, your average days on market is higher than the average in the MLS, or is higher than other agents. Well, you can't use that stat to a seller, can you? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, would like you to pick me. Why is that? Well, as you can see, it's going to take longer for your home to sell. So clearly, I mean, that's good. Here's what else it costs you. By having it stay on the market longer, are you more prone to price reductions? Right. So now your average home is not selling 4 or 5% above list price. Your average home is selling less than list price because you had to go through price reductions or take an offer below list price. Because if it's on the market for 30 days in 2022, what does the buyer think? If I'm a buyer writing an offer in 2022 and the home's been on the market for 30 days, what am I thinking?
It's going to take you that long.
Yeah, it shouldn't take that long, right? So if I'm going to write up an offer, what am I going to do?
Give it a low offer.
I'm going to give it a lower offer, right? Your home is selling for $800,000. I'm going to give you an offer at $750, $775, which means your home's going to eventually sell below list price. So now your average home is selling lower compared to the list price than the MLS or other agents. So now I'm running numbers and I go to the seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you definitely want to use me because as you can see, I'm going to get you less money and more time. Good pitch. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about here, ask Jennifer Matsumoto. Ask Melinda, ask Mark and Al, ask Tess, ask all these other different people that we run numbers for, and their numbers are killer compared to other agents in the MLS in terms of days on market and their average list price compared to the listing. And they go to the seller and they say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the average days on market in this area is 24 days. Mine's 12. The average home in your marketplace is selling for 2.1% above list price. Mine's selling for 3.2. So therefore, I'm going to get you 1% more money in half the time. It's a no-brainer. We take listings like this all day. But if you work with an unmotivated client, you can't do that because your numbers are going to be tarnished. So that's one thing it's costing you. Now, could that cost you one deal a year? Could that cost you? Could that cost you a deal a year, potentially? Or could it help you win a deal a year if your numbers were better? So what's your average commission? 15 grand, 12 grand, 20 grand? All right, so let's just assume it cost you one deal a year. Well, that's another 15 grand. Those unmotivated client you work with that killed your average days on market cost you another 15 grand because your numbers didn't look good compared to the competition. So I wrote that down. I wrote down here, it cost you branding in the neighborhood. It cost you branding in the neighborhood. When you get a listing, isn't the goal to work the neighborhood to get another deal? Isn't that part of the goal? Okay. Now, do neighbors think, do people generally think that homes are selling in like 3 days? Is that the general view of the public, right? Homes are selling in like 7 hours and they're selling for way above list price, right? That's the general public view. Okay. So you get a listing. You have this golden opportunity. I have a sign in the yard. I've got a listing. I can work this neighborhood. I can kind of build a reputation, maybe get another deal. Okay, great. I love it. I think it's a great idea. My mentality is that when you get a listing, the goal is to leverage it for one more deal. Part of that's work in the neighborhood. Okay. Well, you're working with an unmotivated client, which means it takes longer to sell. So the neighbors think the home should sell in 7 days max. You're on the market for 35. What do the neighbors think of you? Do the neighbors have a good impression of you as a real estate agent? No. Are the neighbors eager to talk to you about listing their home? Oh, and then when the home is listed for 800,000 and you sell it for 750, do the neighbors like you then? No, because you had to get a lower offer. Even though the home was worth 750, you sold it for the real price. The neighbors think you're killing their equity. Who in that neighborhood is going to use you? Nobody's going to use you. Honey, we want to list our house. Remember that guy, Robert? Yeah, he listed the Smith's house and it like took forever and it sold below list price. Should we give him a call? I think he left me one of his cards. What do you think? We have 50 real estate agent cards here and 14 calendars. Okay. Should we give this guy a call? No. Meanwhile, you've been making just listed calls for 3 weeks. I just listed the home. No, you didn't. Stop calling me. That home was listed 3 weeks ago. Sell it. So what, I mean, could that cost you a deal? Could it cost you a deal today or in the future by ruining your reputation in the neighborhood? So what is that? That's another deal. So what is that? Another 15 grand, 12 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand? Whatever the average commission is in the neighborhood, possibly even double ending it. Whew, man. I wrote down here, it costs, this is a biggie. It costs your credibility with your database. Working with an unmotivated client costs the credibility with your database. For very much the same reason. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think you are the only person with a real estate license that they know? No. No way. No way. No way. They know other people with a real estate license. They might choose you over the other person because you're good at your job. until they see that you're struggling to get a deal closed. What if it happens to be somebody from your database? You list Jane's house and it's taking forever, and all your friends are going, man, I can't believe Robert can't get Jane's house is still listed. I keep getting like flyers in the mail. The homes are flying off the market. Well, what's going on over there? Uh-oh. Got trouble in paradise. Your database is losing faith in you because you're not getting the deals closed. It's taking you longer. So they might start going elsewhere. They might start looking at it. Your gold mine. What does Mike Ferry say about your database? What does he call your database? Your personal gold mine. And you're risking that gold by working with an unmotivated client that's making you look like you don't know what you're doing. And so your database is losing faith in you. Now, here's the truth. Don't get mad at me. I'm just speaking the truth. Now, I'm speaking the truth from experience of a database problem. There are a lot of people in your database that don't know you're in real estate. Okay, that's just the truth. How do I know? Pull out your phone. Don't do it right now. And go through your contacts and see if you know what every one of your contacts does for a living. Unless all your contacts are your parents, you will not be able to identify what they all do for a living just based on looking at their name. Well, guess what? That's how some people view you. They don't know you're in real estate. So their first impression of you being in real estate is that you can't get the home sold. That's not good. Number two is that there's a number of people in your database that know you're in real estate, but don't know if you're any good. So like, well, I'm a little hesitant of referring them business because I don't know if they're any good at their job. I don't want to be the person that refers someone bad. And then all of a sudden they see that it's taking you a long time to sell a home. Well, now they're definitely not going to refer you anyone. They know you're in real estate, but they don't have any faith in you. Oof, man, I tell you. The cost of your database, the faith and trust of your database by working with unmotivated clients is the biggest killer of all. Because that might cost you more than one deal. That might cost you 2, 3, 4. You work with someone and it's taking a long time to get them sold. All the other people they know are not going to work with you next. It's huge. Huge, huge, huge. And then I wrote down here, right? Cost of an unmotivated client. Why are you so excited to announce a price reduction? I don't understand that. I never understood that marketing. Like I'm on LinkedIn sometimes and I'll just see this and I'll see in huge letters, huge price reduction. Come check out this opportunity. I'm like, why are you promoting that you couldn't sell the home at the real price? To me, I'm looking at that going, you failed. You failed. You failed. The seller, you failed to get the home. And yet we promote it like crazy. Huge price reduction. What an opportunity. Don't miss this. We just cut a $2 million house, 500 grand. I have a $2 million house going, I'm not listing with you. Why are you so excited about this? But you have to be excited because you're trying to get it sold. And yet everyone that's reading it, that's not in real estate, because the people in real estate are like, I feel you. But the people who are not in real estate are looking at like, oh, you failed. You failed to get the home sold for the price. And so now you're reducing it. That's not going to get you a referral. This is all because we wanted to take an unmotivated client because we saw the end possible commission. We saw the 20 grand, the 10 grand, the 15 grand, the 30 grand, the 40, the 50 grand. Oh my gosh. And if I double end it, oof, that's what we saw. We didn't see all the stuff between here and there. And all the stuff between here and there, even if you get it eventually sold, because sometimes that happens. I'll get a call, Robert, I got it sold. Took me 6-7 months, but I finally got it sold. Yeah, but what happened between here and there? How much did that cost you? We don't think about that sometimes. As Jason Penrose, agent in Arizona that Neil interviewed, who does a couple $1 million in commission a year, he said, whenever you're working with an unmotivated client, it takes you 6 months to sell it. Yeah, that's great. But how many deals did you lose between now and then? That's what we have to think of. So as we wrap up here, I challenge you to set some gold standards for yourself in working with an unmotivated client. You're going to do it again. We all are. We're all guilty of it. But shorten the time frame, if nothing else. But set some more standards, because it's like, gosh, I could take this listing and it's going to take me a while to sell it. Maybe I can beat them down on price, but do I really want to go through all that of what else it might cost me, time-wise, energy-wise, mindset-wise, database-wise, neighborhood-wise, just to try to hopefully get these one people to go forward?
So Robert, what do you do with those type of people? Just refer them out?
I'll refer them out, I guess, to an agent I don't like.
Okay.
I got an agent perfect for you. Works at Remax. Want you to call him up. And once you waste his time. I mean, but you could refer him out. You could just be openly honest with them. Mr. and Mrs. Sal, look, I want to get your home sold. I want to get you to Santa Monica, close to the beach. But look, based on the comps, why do you think your home is going to sell for $1 million when everything around you is selling for $875? Well, I want $1 million, or otherwise I'm not going to sell it. Okay, well then, best of luck to you. I'm going to walk away. Because I'd rather walk away being honest than you hate me in 3 weeks because I can't get your home sold.
You cannot take a price-only motivation listing in this market. They have to have a place to go. There has to be an ulterior motive for the reason for their sale.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment.
100%. 100%. So you have to be willing to walk away. Or again, because we're all guilty of it, of still working with someone like, okay, well, it's not that far off, is limit the time frame. Meaning that, all right, Mr. and Mrs. I'll tell you what, we're going to do this. You want $925, it's selling for $875. Tell you what, if you're willing to reduce your price to $875 after 2 weeks, we'll take the listing. And you give yourself a 2-week thing instead of just saying, okay, let's take it at $925 and let's see how it goes for a month. Or not even having a price reduction strategy in place. I mean, I still hate the price reduction idea, but that's just the way it goes. Shorten the time frame. So instead of, it just takes too long. Because you have to factor in the escrow period, which is another 30 days. You know, but we do it because we see the end result, and because some of us think we're never going to get another listing. Well, I've got to take this because, gosh, I don't know when I'm going to get another chance to get another listing. Well, you could take it. It's not going to sell. So you really still didn't really give your chance a shot at getting a listing. Any other questions on what we went over today? All right, very good. It's not a fun topic. It's not a topic I like talking about because I generally like having fun and things like that. You know, even though we work in a serious business, this is not a fun topic. So I appreciate you sticking with me and doing the math and things like that. But it's an important topic because it's something that we need to be cognizant of and make sure that we're doing things the right way. All right, very good. Well, hopefully